Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar in our webinar series of ENLIGHT and Arqus alliances. And this webinar is on open educational resources and their relation to open science. As said, this webinar series is organized by ENLIGHT and Arqus alliances. And I just wanted to highlight what European university networks or these university alliances, what they are. They are part of a European Commission initiatives called European Universities, and they call them the key pillar of the European education area. By now, there are 64 alliances in 35 countries are involved, including all the 27 member states. And more than 560 higher education institutions are part of such an alliance. So it's a question of pooling resources and having a broad university network with different university networks all over Europe that we have this initiative. On the right-hand side, you see the timeline. And so we are now in the summer of 2024 and results of the 5th call have been announced. So there are already 5 calls to form these European university networks. The ENLIGHT consortium is a part of the 2nd call. You see all the 10 universities of our alliance here on the top, and Arqus European University Alliances. You see all the universities on the lower side of this PowerPoint presentation. As said, this is part of a webinar series. We have more information on the path, the link that you can copy here when you get the slides, but Madeline, maybe you can put it in the chat as well. And you can follow all our webinars there. You can see the recordings of past ones and the announcements of new ones. The next webinar will be in January 2025. This one is on open educational resources and their relation to open science. Open educational resources, according to UNESCO, are very important in getting information all over the globe. It's about openness of learning resources, of educational resources, preferably with open licenses, of course. In this webinar, we will hear a presentation by Sascha Eckhold, and Sascha Eckhold is part of the team of the University Library of the Freie Universität Berlin, and he is part of the Teaching and Learning Services. The Freie Universität Berlin itself is part of the UNA Europa University Network. But Sascha will tell you all about it himself. So I'll stop sharing my screen and give the word to Sascha.
Yes, the topic I want to talk about a little bit today is open educational resources and their relation to open science. The introduction said it all. I'm working at the University Library of the Freie University of Berlin, or Freie Universität Berlin. And one, not the only one, but one of my tasks there is to provide services and information regarding open educational resources. This means having a open educational resources platform, a web page where our users can inform themselves, a lot of information there, but also having services for them that helps them to search, create open educational resources. So yeah, but I can talk a little bit about that later on. The University Library of the FU is the topic of OER is relatively new to the University Library. Of course, it's not a new topic per se, but for us, it's a new topic. Our platform is online since spring this year. So there's still a lot of work to do regarding like dissemination of the topic throughout the university. But we can build on a lot of already available information, which is very great. And so, yeah, already have a lot of services there. Okay, let's start with a little bit of the basics of open educational resources. Here we see what I want to talk about today. 30 minutes, it's not a long time, so I'll try to yeah, focus on the most important things, which would be the really basics of open educational resources. Then I want to focus on the three parts of this, like the open, the educational, and the resources. It's very interesting to look at each of these separately. Then I want to talk about how to find and how to use and how to create OER. This could, of course, today it can only be a very concise thing. You could have workshops for each of these topics separately. And I want to talk about, and this is like the transition to a discussion about OER and open science, the relation of these both. The basics. Here we see the OER definition by UNESCO. Before I say anything about it, I just want to say this is nothing binding. There's not one definition that we all have, you know, to take set in stone. This is just how UNESCO sees it, and I think a lot of practitioners regarding OER can agree with this definition. And UNESCO says that open educational resources are learning, teaching, and research materials in any format and medium that reside in the public domain or are under copyright and have been released under an open license that permit no-cost access, reuse, repurpose, adaptation, and redistribution by others. There's a lot in there, and we will unravel a little bit of this next 30 minutes. But let's just say, I said this definition is not the only definition. And of course, there are some practitioners who say this is not open enough. Like there was a lot of discussion about the word no-cost access or access, because what is access? Die-hard OER practitioners, they want the files. They want to have the educational resources on their hard drive to use, to adapt, and so on. And access doesn't necessarily mean that. I mean, a song on Spotify I can access, but I don't have it on my hard drive. So there was a little bit of discussion about this. I don't want to go more deeper into this, just to show that the definition is alive and you can rephrase this for your needs. But it's a little fuzzy topic when we talk about education in general, so we will see how the problematic the definition can be regarding educational resources. On the right-hand side here, you can see the official Open Educational Resources logo by UNESCO. It's not the nicest logo, I think, but it's personal preference. But I just wanted to have it here to show you. And every time you see this logo, you know it's about open educational resources. Again, this is not the one definitive logo. There are a lot of logos for OER, and in the sense of OER, this is as an open license. You don't have to use it for anything. But this is it. If you see it, you know it's about open educational resources. Just a short glance at the OER history, really. 1997, Merlot started it, the California State University. They wanted to make educational material accessible, open, and free. This was a university project, and it led to this platform. I call it Merlot. I don't know. Maybe they call it Merlot. I don't know. which nowadays has over 43,000 openly licensed educational resources. So this is it's still online, you can still access it. And this is like the starting point for these big projects that said, we want to have educational resources online for everyone to use. This was before Creative Commons was founded. This was in 2001. So these things interweave with each other. Institutions wanted to have like open resources, but of course the copyright is rather prohibitive. So Creative Commons was founded in Stanford in 2001. Most of these early actions regarding open education resources were funded by the Hewlett Foundation. Hewlett, you know, HP, the computer manufacturer. So you can really separate these events here. And of course, once Creative Commons was in the world, a lot of more projects started. They saw the potential of the open licensing system. I will talk about these open licenses. And this paved the way for more big platforms with openly licensed educational resources. Like in 2002, the MIT started OpenCourseWare, a huge platform for videos, like whole filmed lectures and stuff like that. And of course, it's the MIT, so it's has a lot of power behind it. And this was like the blueprint for a lot of MOOCs today, for a lot of these open online courses that you find today. And in 2002, the term OER was coined. This is a little bit, I don't know if it's really the first time someone said this are open educational resources, but this is not so important. But important is that it's was by UNESCO in a UNESCO forum, one of many. And this is 2002 is like the time where UNESCO started to heavily invest into the topic of open educational resources. So this was an important meeting, and it is an important document that came from this, because for the first time there was a highly regarded institution that was not a university that said, okay, this is an important topic. And you can see it was a forum on the impact of open courseware for higher education in developing countries. And of course, this is something that is always connected to the idea of open educational resources. I mean, let's be honest, we are very privileged. We have access to a lot of resources. We, let's just say in the Northern Hemisphere, we don't necessarily need a lot of open educational resources because we have access. But looking at the whole world, you all know this is not always the case. And of course, this is where UNESCO comes from regarding OER, to say developing countries are in dire need of resources. They don't have them necessarily, they can't afford them. So this would be something that is very a huge desire to have. And so you can say OER regarding UNESCO started from this charitable idea of sharing. And then you can see there's a jump here from 2002 to 2008. Of course, a lot of things regarding OER happened, but I don't want to state everything here. But you see, from then on, UNESCO is very involved in the topic. Several declarations, Cape Town Declaration, the Paris Declaration, the Action Plan, Ljubljana. So UNESCO is really a driver for this, at least for the frameworks. Of course, UNESCO can't, state exactly how the open educational resources idea should be made actionable for every institution, but they kept the topic alive, and every project, every funded project could reference UNESCO and say, okay, this is part of their action plan, of their declaration. So this was a huge incentive to have open educational resources related projects at, let's say, universities. This culminated in 2020 in the UNESCO OER recommendation, and this is cited a lot. We in Germany have an official document for OER recommendations. I think it was 2022 when it was released from the government. So this is the first time we really have something really official about this. And of course, they heavily citing UNESCO OER recommendations. So they are very important in this development. And around these UNESCO declarations and papers, there are more and more small and also large projects regarding open educational resources. I would say the US is one of the biggest drivers there because of these immense textbook costs that you surely know about. A problem that we luckily don't have, at least in Germany. You know how it is in your countries, but in Germany, this is not so much a problem, but in the US, it's a huge problem. Like students go bankrupt because of this. So they are in need of free or open resources. Talking about benefits of using and creating OER. I mean, the last point I'm stating here, providing valuable resources for the greater good. This is where UNESCO comes from. But we all know the reality of academia, and we all know that just idealistic benefits are hardly enough. I think we can all agree on open as something that we desire, that is good, but yeah, resources are spare. So what are other benefits of just being idealistic about it? And of course, it's the easy access to free and legally safe educational resources. We all know the problems of copyright within universities. I can only really talk about Germany. There are strict rules about what to use, how much, the percentage of things you can use in an educational setting. And you have to educate yourself on copyright before you do this. But with open educational resources, this is not so much the case. We will talk about this. Of course, you can save time by reusing material. A lot of things are there. Maybe they're not perfect, maybe they are not complete, but it's a very good starting point to reuse material that has already been published. And when we look a little bit about the methods of teaching, you could have new methods of student participation with the OER freedoms, because when you work in this rigid frame of copyright, the classic copyright, it's very hard for students to interact with material because you would have to ask for permission, the copyright holder. But with open educational resources, the students could adapt something. They could translate something that is already there. They could create something and put it on an open license themselves. And there are a lot of things that you could do with these open educational resources really for your teaching. When you create OER, of course, you generate visibility for your teaching. This is also something that, at least in Germany, is not really there. You know, you spend a lot of time creating your courses, your lectures, your materials, and then students see it, you teach with this, and then it's gone. Just compare this to the publication of your papers, your research work. There's a whole different world. You want the world to see your research because, of course, you need to stay relevant. You need to have your articles published. With teaching materials, this is absolutely not the case. And I think we all know the imbalance between teaching and research in a university or in academia per se. So this generates visibility for your teaching. Get it out of the drawer into the world, show the world what your teaching materials are. You can get in contact with others of your peers. Or you could, if you are a very active person regarding OER, also have this like in your CV. This is absolutely thinkable. So these are some benefits. Some are more idealistic, some are more, yeah, about your own benefits of using this, but there are a lot of more. We can talk about this later in the discussion. Let's focus on the open part. And this is something that I am sure most of you know. The Creative Commons licensing system is what has been adapted for open educational resources. As you may know, there are other open licenses like more for software use and stuff like that. But for open educational resources, it's basically Creative Commons. We don't need to talk about any other licensing systems here. And the Creative Commons licenses, as stated on the website of Creative Commons, give everyone from individual creators to large institutions a standardized way to grant the public permission to use their creative work under copyright law, which means copyright law is not canceled out here. It can't be, at least in Germany. You are always the copyright holder, even if you don't want to be. If you create something, you can give this away. From the reuser's perspective, which would be a lot of teaching staff, the presence of a Creative Commons license on a copyrighted work answers the question, what can I do with this work? This is really the core of what's this about. And I'm sure all of you have seen these licenses, and as I said, this would be a whole workshop for itself to really go deep into this. But you see here, there are in this CC licenses system several licenses or license types, which are more open or more closed, which starting at the top with a license that only needs attribution. So if you use the material with this license, you only need to attribute the author, the name, nothing else. You can do everything else with this resource. And when you go from here down, you see attribution. Yes, it's always the case. You always need to attribute the author, but then you can't use it commercial, or you have to share it like it is. You can't adapt it. I mean, you have to share it like it is. You can't apply a different license or no derivative work. And you see from step down, it gets more prohibited, more closed. And every single of these licenses has its use cases. It's not like that the CC BY license is the best, and the license at the bottom here is bad. It's just the use case that you need to consider when you apply these licenses. What of these licenses are considered OER or suitable for OER? Well, that's a discussion that will never be finished, but a lot of people say, let's stop at attribution share alike, which means if you want to use something that has this license, attribution share alike, you have to state the name of the copyright holder, and you have to share this resource if you like do something with it, like translate, for example, with the same license share alike. You can't switch to another license. After that, it gets too close for many to call it open educational resources, but this is absolutely not binding. It's just a suggestion. So if you can use CC BY I mean, if you can do it, put your stuff into public domain, so there are no rights whatsoever, but CC BY is like, let's call it the gold standard for open educational resources. This is a very nice infographic about these licenses, because you can talk forever about these licenses. And of course, it gets complicated when you have like a document that consists of several other resources with different licenses. You can go very granular here, but I want to share this infographic with you because it helps a lot. It's just like this train, and every time there are forks in the tracks, there's a question, and you can just write the OER train to the license you need. This is very handy. I use this often just to quickly see what license I need. Of course, we record all this, and you can get my presentation. So we don't have really time to go into details here, but I think you get the idea of this very nice infographic to get to the license you want. Just a short comment on the license system. This is legally binding. It's not like a fantasy license, of course. If you have a resource and you publish it and you give it one of these licenses, this is legally binding worldwide. So if someone violates this license, let's say they don't give you attribution or they use it commercially, even though you said, please don't use it commercially, then you can sue. This is binding. So and still the copyright is in place. So this is nothing that the copyright is not deactivated here. Okay, let's talk about educational. It gets a little bit more fuzzy because what counts as educational? When is a resource an educational resource? Well, like with every other topic surrounding open educational resources, there's a lot of discussion about this. I don't know if we need this discussion really, but I just want to tell you a little bit about what is educational, what could educational be. I mean, I have some examples here for open educational resources. One is a book, The Guide to Mathematics of Business and Finance. I would say a textbook is an educational resource. The other one here is a block course, which is the complete university course you can use or adapt to your own course about this cloud model and visualization topic here. Of course, these are educational resources, but what about this? It's just a picture of a robot someone drew. It has a CC BY license. Is this educational? Well, some people would say no, it has no educational value. Maybe it's useful, but it's not educational. The university library where I work, we say it gets education or something is educational if it's used in educational setting, which keeps this very open. If you want to build an educational resource and you need this little robot here and you place it inside yours, then why not? When you need it for your education, then it's an educational resource. So maybe we don't need to think about this educational part so much. Of course, there are some things that are licensed as CC BY that are hardly educational. But my personal stance on this is the more possibility you have and the more resources there are with open licensing, the better. And we all know when we look at through our teaching material, it's not just infographics or tables or something like that. We also use a lot of other graphics, and it's all part of this educational package. So I would suggest stay open about the educational part. An open access document could be educational, it could be an OER. So there is a lot of overlapping between these different terms or resources. Speaking of resources, let's focus a little bit on the resources. The UNESCO definition, I have it here again, states that these are learning, teaching, and research materials in any format and medium. Of course, we think about digital first nowadays, but an open educational resource could be something that you print out. You only have to have the license on it. So it's any format, any medium, everywhere that you could put these CC license on. This could be an open educational resource, of course. This is an example for secondary schools in Germany. How do computers learn? I have this here on the right side. CC BY SA license, which means you can use it. You have to say who made it, and you have to, if you want to release it or adapt it and release it, publish it, and it has to be the same CC BY SA license. More interesting is the thought about the format, because what educational resources or open educational resources should allow is the adaptation. When you have like a license on it that allows adaptation, then the format should allow it too. And I mean, what I have here is a PDF, which you can print out or also use online. We all know that PDF is not really editable. So of course you can do it with Acrobat, but it's not the format to go to when you want to have a document that you can easily edit. So what they did here is really nice. They have not just the PDF for download, but also the docx, the Word format. So you can open this and easily adapt it. And I would say, please provide editable file formats whenever possible. It's not always possible. Like it's a problem when you talk about videos, for example. I mean, you can upload the raw video files and everything, but here it gets really complicated, but you don't have to be dogmatic about it. If you can do it, do it. And if it's not possible, then don't do it. But just because I have the docx here, this allows a lot of teachers to just open it in their Word, and I guess Word is something that is a program that everyone has, and just edit it. Even more in the direction of the gold standard would be if it's not only docx, but even a more open document format like ODT for LibreOffice or something like that. But let's be realistic, provide the file formats that the most people use. And if you provide another file format, PDF, docx, and ODT, it's just even better. You have this selection available there. The same goes, of course, with like PDF and PowerPoint. If you want people to edit your stuff, then you would have to provide a PowerPoint file and not just the PDF version of it. Okay, let's talk a little bit about how to find OER. I would always start with the big platforms like search engines. This is Google here, but of course, you know, there are different search engines. You could just straight search for this. Like here's an example where I attached CC BY or I attached OER to the term, and this helps a lot in finding stuff, especially if it's on like university websites that are easily crawled or searchable with Google. But in Google, I think it's also possible in Bing. You could also search for images and then say have a search filter going, which says, you see that in the screenshot down there, usage rights, Creative Commons licenses. And so it filters the results for you and just gives you back the Creative Commons licensed images. This is something that is fast and easy. If I don't find something here, then I would go on. But one more big platform is YouTube, of course. You can search here too, and you could have a search filter here too. It's on the right-hand side. I think you need to search first, and then you have the filters. And then you can see on the features, there's also Creative Commons available. So this would be the easy way. But we have more ways to find OER, which are repositories. These are, as you may know, databases made for OER. I have some examples here, like Twilio in Germany is a big platform, Open Textbook Library in the US, and the OER Commons. Of course, there are a lot more, but basically in repositories, the material really is in the repository. It's not always the case. There's a lot of overlapping between different kinds of places to find OER, but repositories aim to really have the materials inside their own database. So you can search, you can filter. This is a good second step after you maybe didn't find enough on the Google search. And there are meta search engines. These are search engines over other repositories. We see here Merlot on the left side, which I talked about, one of the earliest example of these open educational resources. And in Germany, we have the OER-SE, I don't know how they pronounce this. But what you find here is present in different databases. So you can find a lot of things here, but you also have a lot of noise here, of course. But you can filter, like you see on the right-hand side, a screenshot. So you should also arrive at good materials. And then something that's maybe not so known, but still very important for certain kinds of topics are museums and galleries. The Met collection I have here on the left-hand side, or Europeana on the right-hand side. For art history and stuff like that, this is like this is a gold trove, because there are so many pictures of art, of like sculptures, of paintings. I mean, most of these are in the public domain anyway, because it's old. But you can search this here. You can have a lot of information here, metadata and stuff like that. And you can use these pictures, these perfect pictures of art or other things. It's not just art. It's like you see on the right-hand side, generally cultural heritage items. So if you are active in one of these fields of work, then it's always good to look at these institutions too, not just the OER platforms. So how to use OER? Yeah, it's fairly simple, really. Having here again this nice infographic, because if you want to use OER in your own document, then of course you need to know what your document will be at the end. If it should also be an openly licensed document, then of course you will need to choose external resources with the right license. And this helps you a lot as a user of OER. You don't even need to create something, but just drive the drain here and you can see what the licenses mean. More important is the attribution. You need to do this or you could be sued. Attribution of OER, and this is more specific to the CC BY licensing model, is always the title of the resource, and if possible, linked to the original source, if it's a digital open educational resource, so that I could just click on there and see the original file. Plus the author, of course, and if possible, a link to an author's personal page. This is way harder to do, but sometimes you can do this, like someone has an account on some platform and you could just link to there. It is nice, but it doesn't have to be stated. And of course, the CC license. And this should be linked to the CC deed for this license. Creative Commons have these deeds on their website where you can see what is possible with this license, just for transparency reasons. Is this a good idea? So I can just click on the CC license and see, okay, that's what it's about. On the bottom here is an example resource by Jane Doe is licensed under CC BY NC 4.0. I don't have the time to talk about 4.0, but anyway, it's there if you want to know what it's about. Just ask after the presentation. Yeah, you don't have to word it like that exactly, but it's nice to use this format. How to create OER? Well, if it's a new resource you want to create, this is very good because you can plan it as an OER from the start. You choose the right license, what it should be at the end. If you have existing material in your new resource, then please avoid non-CC licensed material, of course. It doesn't make much sense if you want to make an OER and then it contains non-OER material. And respect the license. Use it correctly. If you want to create an open educational resource that can be used commercially, and you use resources in there from others that say, please don't use my material commercially, that's a problem. So you have to use it correctly. And of course, the attribution for everything. Then you have to state your chosen license so others can see what your OER is licensed with. And it would be really nice to give the complete attribution for easily copy and pasting. This is something not many people do, but I think it's really nice to just say how this should be attributed. So I can just copy and paste it if I use your material, or else I have to see, okay, what's the name and is there a link? If you provide the whole attribution in your own resource, it makes it easier to reuse, of course. And then, as I said, publish as an editable format. These are the very concise steps to new resources. Existing resources, it's a lot harder because you have to clear your existing like PowerPoint from everything that is in conflict with CC licenses or copyright. This is what I said at the last slide. It's way easier to start from scratch with an open educational resources than getting old material and then trying to make it as an OER, because you really have to look here for conflicting licensing. The last thing I want to talk about and leading over into a discussion is OER and open science. These are just a few graphics about definitions of open science, and you can see it's always like the same thing, like open science in the middle, and then these parts like open access, open data, open source. And everywhere you will find open educational resources, which I could say, okay, OER are part of the umbrella term open science. This is the theory. In practice, it is always considered, but rarely talked about beyond these graphics. So of course, there are more sciencey parts of open science and open educational resources, more or less an afterthought, because educational means like using it for teaching, and where is that exactly in the chain of open science or the scientific life cycle? I think open educational resources are part of open science because it shares the idea of openness. So it makes sense to have it there. And because of course, open educational resources are used in an somehow academic or scholarly surrounding. And also a lot of people that do science also do the teaching, you know that. So it's there, but the problem is as soon as you have it here, you could say, we considered it, we thought about it, and then you don't really have to do anything else with this. So for me as the OER guy and not necessarily open science guy, I'm not an expert on these other topics, it's a lot of work to keep the open educational resources topic inside open science alive. And this would need to be done to, like justify it as one of the parts as we see here in these graphics. So I would be very interested in if open educational resources play any role in your open science life, if I may say it like that. If there's talk about open educational resources when you talk about this open science topic, and what you personally think the role could be or how it could be considered when there are projects or talks about open science. Okay, my time is way up. Okay, this is finally my contact information. You can contact me about open educational resources anytime. I'm glad to answer questions, or if you want to do some work together, please feel free to contact me. Thank you very much for your time and your attention, and I'm interested in what your opinions are about open educational resources and open science. Thanks.